Good afternoon, everyone. The desert of the Middle East is turning green again, and the Gobi Desert. We're going to look at how the Earth's magnetic field is shifting and some source maps from the late 1400s show there was rivers across Saudi Arabia, Yemen, and Oman. Are we flipping back again to wet? Let's take a look. And we're speaking of big changes, and since the hurricanes were in the news, Miami Beach, Florida, 1925 on the left, 2019 to the right. I don't know how enjoyable it would have been with that minimal amount of development. There's nothing really there. But again, times were different in the 1920s. Now moving over 3,000 years prior, discovery in Russia. Oh, what have they found? The same face configuration that's been seen across the planet. So is 3,000 years truly the date on this? Because others found across Asia predate this by several thousand years. So it's a guessing game, I guess. But that civilization disappeared as well. You might ask why. And if we're going to look at the North Pole geomagnetic moving, and we could see how green it was in the 1700s and how it moved, and it moved again. 1800s is blue, and then we get to 1900s green again, and now we are the scarlet pink rocket moving across. And then above you'll take a look at the barycenter in our sun also, and that yellow line is how fast the North Pole geomagnetic is moving compared to where the barycenter is moving, and we can see there's definitely across this chart here. Going back to 1590, we don't see this kind of divergence with the geomagnetic North Pole and the barycenter, which shall be near center again in 2030. And all the lines you see there are me taking that back to 1400 AD. I wanted to see where we are sitting in time. I do like to run different models. But speaking of time, source map here for you. The Torsici Imperi, 1584. I see a lot of very full lakes up there around Iraq area. Dry as a bone now, and if we come down into where Yemen and Oman is, that is Arabian Peninsula. I see larger rivers that don't exist anymore. So that kind of change has occurred since at least the late 1580s. So maybe these shifts can occur faster than previously thought, because we're looking at regreening of Africa and the Middle East. The Congo River risen to its highest level in 60 years, although it's not 600. But there is a lot of displacement as villages were following down to the old river edges or lake edges that have dried out. This is in Cameroon and Nigeria. Cameroon's been getting so much rain. As we look at the displacement again of those that would be at the very bottom of a megalake prior, African megalake. Where is this water going to go? If it starts raining more, it's going to refill the bottoms of these previous megalakes first. And that's where people are living now on the shorelines. It turns out the key to losing weight and keeping it off is not carbs or fat or even probiotic-rich foods. Nope. The end game of having a healthy weight, as well as more energy and a long, healthy life, comes down to a specific switch which you can flip in your body to flush out unnecessary calories. Dr. Stephen Gundry is calling this caloric bypass. And by activating this specific process in your body, he's seen thousands, yes, thousands of people dramatically improve their health, even at age 50 and beyond. This includes losing weight, getting tons more energy, and returning to the good health that they had in their youth once they simply addressed this one key to better health. Dr. Stephen Gundry has lost 70 pounds himself using this research and has kept the weight off for over 20 years and counting. His digestive issues are gone, his health is fantastic, and he feels younger and healthier today than he did in his 40s. His video has been watched by over 20 million people to date, and you can watch and learn more about it at thehealthyfat.com/adapt. And he'll teach you exactly how he's kept his weight off for free at thehealthyfat.com /adapt. Click on that link in the description box below. And now on with the video. Now also I came across this strangest of article. South Sudan embarks on cashless transition. They're going to move over to digital apps for commerce. And I'm like, wait a second, you barely have electricity. No, I'm not being demeaning or anything, but you got to have way better infrastructure for that. And it's a travesty that Africa is not more developed than it is right now. And I think it's been purposely put on the shelf because of the resources, but that's just me. And if we look at Burkina Faso also revoking all mining permits, gold mining, because they're keeping all that gold in their country because of the new gold-backed currency, at least one leg of the gold-backed currency for the BRICS nations are like, there's tons of gold here. It's staying in our country. Y'all aren't taking it anymore. And we're seeing this across Africa. And now the Suez Canal plunging revenue 60%. So what happens with Egypt? If they're on a fiat-based system and it's collapsing, they're going to print more money, and we're going to see the same things happening here. So these are vast changes. Now you can see how different nations are dealing with it. Some are going to gold. They understand that's going to be the new currency. So everything's in motion of shift right now. Global transportation, international trade and commerce, how we settle those debts. Also places that are going to become new agricultural zones. Other places that are going to become uninhabitable. You get this bevy, this whole spectrum of events in motion right now. And you can absolutely see why the world is changing the way it is, because there's so much change happening and we're just adjusting to it. Governments are adjusting to it. We're just along for the ride. And again, that's going to be our waking state moving forward is, can you adjust and pivot? That's going to be a skill set to learn moving forward. And also, where are you going to set up new grow zones? All these areas are becoming much wetter here. Greening rare September. Rainfalls bring lakes back, North Africa, and also the Middle East. Taking a look at Oman here, coastal, and not even cyclones or anything. It's just an enormous amount of rain. Flash floods. Deserts are now becoming lakes. People posing for photos there. And these are iconic photos for our age that you're looking at. And coming out of Saudi Arabia, they've had record floods all up and down the Red Sea, from Mecca all the way down into the very tip of Yemen. Greening deserts, and it's not just in one place. It's literally like this every single. Look how thick this vegetation is. This is one of the driest places on the planet. I really hope you can, for me, even looking at this, wow, fields of flowers, and looking at some of the vegetative index. If you go to a NASA Space Viewer, you can dive in and do some of your own. 2023 and 2024. That is an enormous amount of change. But that's really localized into the Sahel. So if we do the same thing, we're going to step back out here and take a look at the line right at the border edge of the Sahel, and then how it expands. That's all the way up into the Sudan, Chad, and Niger. I mean, this is becoming a veritable Garden of Eden once again. It's going to occur fast. I mean, they're doing some water capture projects here where they put these half moons, and then once it fills, vegetation starts, but once it starts, then it starts to interconnect. And then you regreen in the desert. All they're doing is capturing the water first to give it that literal foothold. And this is what the types of projects need to be put in across Africa, because the rainfall is coming back and they could get that thing to regreen far faster if they can capture that water. On the inverse, Southern Africa going into mega drought. South African crops pretty much lost. Zimbabwe lost crops. Massive droughts, but they had these crazy snowstorms out of season just weeks ago. And the hydrological cycle is turning into ultra drought in South Africa, as well as the Amazon in the northern part of Africa, and the Middle East is getting much greener. But again, sandstorms, they're still going to be coming. It's not going to be an instant transition into just 100% vegetative cover. But I want to bring you to the Gobi Desert here, because if you think it's just like one area on the planet, Gobi Desert last year, Gobi Desert this year. And I'm pretty enthralled by China's greening as well, although they have a massive project out there to plant very drought-resistant types of tree species across Ningxia and other areas out into the Tarim Basin. Remember, there's a lot of oases, and that area used to be green also with trade routes on the Silk Road. So the entire world's shifting. So think about some of these oldest of cultures. You go back 4,000 years in China, the Silk Road. You go back to Mesopotamia, even further, Sumeria, Acadia, or Akkadians, however you like to pronounce that. Totally wiped out, some sort of mega drop for 300 years after either a volcanic eruption or some sort of lightning discharge plasma event through the area. Our Earth is not as stable as it's portrayed to be. Change is constant, and we're starting to see it again. Now, this is definitely a multi-thousand-year shift that we're looking at here. Gobi's going green, but again, those trade routes that we're running through, even some of the driest places of the Tarim Basin out there, westward before you get to Kashgar. These are what used to be 6th century, just incredible oasis areas. So the greening comes and the greening goes. It's on a cycle. And I'm just curious how fast it's going to come back green when the rain starts again, although some people would be naysayers and go, there's no soil out there. Well, as soon as you start, obviously, those plants were growing after a few years again. So, nature's always going to find its niche. And how quickly can that be utilized to grow food if we're going to lose food in other parts of the world that, like, for example, South Africa, major grain producer for Africa, if they're going to go offline, then perhaps we could grow it in different areas of the Sahel in North Africa that become greener during this time. There's going to be that, exchange. Nothing goes to zero. It just shifts. And speaking of shift, let's go into a Zen lake, a moment of tranquil waters to contemplate the transition. I do appreciate you watching. Hope you got something out of the video. Share with your friends and family. Come on over, join us, civilizationcycle.com. That's our podcast website. Put your address in there. We'll get you show notes of the points we talk about during our live show, and also Telegram, the Civilization Cycle Telegram channel. And join us there for content and shorts that are posted nowhere else. See you next time. Bye for now.